Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and Hearthstone has a major problem. Episode 7526, something like that. Yes, Hearthstone, man, if you're playing ladder these days, at least at a higher ranks, people are going absolutely crazy as the meta tyrant, Tony Druid, feels like Hearthstone needs a hard reset. This is actually before the latest balance patch. You can see Sargeras out on turn 6, and they're still getting Tony. It's ridiculous, but that deck hasn't changed basically at all. And we're gonna go into it. And there's basically one card that is really driving all the major issues by the looks of it, not only in standard, but wild, where it is pretty much just as bad since the latest patch. And if you enjoy the content on the channel, feel like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like, it helps us out a ton. So yeah, Tony Druid, pretty crazy. I don't know if it's moved down the ranks quite yet, but the higher ranked players are losing their minds. And basically, yeah, what it comes down to is you play a new Bracan. That card there lets you cheat out a bunch of mana, you know, play cards for armor. That was nerfed, by the way. A lot of these cards have been nerfed. The Lasher on the board there's been nerfed. But yeah, you play that. Sometimes you can just play Tony first, depending on the deck. Take your opponent's deck, then Jailer it, delete it. And then when they clear your board, they're fatiguing to death. And in the other matches, you just play Jailer, then Tony. And then there's no way for them to really remove your board. And you have their deck, right? Like, and you just win. And there's like not much you can do. Everything's immune. It's really frustrating. And well, with some of the new cards lately, the deck is just over the top. And yes, pro players or just hardcore players in general are not thrilled. We have Donkey here tweeting out, Tony Druid is so stupid. It's not even weak to things it should be weak to. Hopefully it's dealt with soon. We have Wicked Good, just talking about Druid in general, which is a video I want to do at some point of just what the hell happened to Druid, because every time there's a Druid archetype that's playable, it's super toxic, everybody hates it, and it gets nerfed right away. It's like, when was the last healthy Druid archetype? I fail to think of one, like, in particular before even like Guff was made. Everything is just about scamming and just, it's really awful. And he says, it's starting to feel like, to me, like the problem with Druid might only be fixable with a full rework of the class. It's getting to OG Shaman territory where either the class is either unplayable or completely broken, and there's no in between most of the time. Like, I'm trying to think of the last fair Druid deck, and I just can't. I think the last one that I used as an example was like Spell Druid. You had a like Glowfly Swarm into Arbor Up. Maybe, but yeah, Guff just created all these stupid things, and now we have just these amazing, like, crazy mana scams. But we'll probably talk about that in another video. But for me, it all comes down to they've gotten away from just giving them ramp. Like, you ramp into stuff. Now you ramp into insane mana cheat, refreshing and cheating mana. For the most part, outside of like the Twigs and the Avianas of the world, it wasn't really about that. You would ramp up into like Ultimate Infestation and then just play a bunch of big stupid things, right? You don't do that anymore. Now you just murder your opponent or create this uninteractable board. So there's quite some frustrations there. And then Insane, trying to grind the high legend ladder. Look at his matchmaking. I'm not gonna read his comment because that's like actually kind of toxic. That's old Zeddy toxic. But yes, the Druid, like, look at it. I know he's facing the same people a bunch, but still, like, unbelievable lack of deck diversity. But what I noticed from this, Priest did not lose a single game. They need a nerf Priest. That's what I've gotten. No, I don't hate Priest, just nerf it. Hey, Meaty hit rank 1 yesterday, playing Control Priest trying to counter it. So yeah, Druid is absolutely ridiculous. And if you do look at the Hearthstone meta, you take a look at the top legend, Tony Druid already 3rd. But if you take a note, like the top 2 decks here in Rage Warriors, sample size, pretty reasonable, 3,600. It is somewhat a counter to Tony Druid in that it creates a really early board state that they struggle with. But then you look at Tony Druid, it's got 13,000 games, and you take a look at its worst matchups like Silverhand Paladin, and you take a look at matchups overall, it doesn't lose to a heck of a lot. Mech Rogue is up there. Like, you have to play the most aggressive, just really aggressive decks to try and beat it, or else you are completely losing. And the meta is kind of devolving into that, where you just try your damnedest to beat that one deck, and it's really frustrating. But what is enabling it? I haven't really got to that point. And I think it's really exacerbated, exemplified in Wild, where Wild has a very similar problem going on. Look at the top two classes in Wild, it's Druid and Rogue, and it's only getting worse as time goes on. And it's mainly two decks. First, we have the Quest Druid deck that just, you know, you play Lost in the Park, you're able to spam a bunch of cheap spells and do a lot of damage. You have 0 mana draw, you have Umbral Owl, Arcane Giant, but Yogg shored up a weakness this deck had. It couldn't deal with big boards, like Mech Paladin was a good answer to it, or just any deck that could spam, even Big Priest, get large taunts. I know both those decks got nerfed recently, but still, any deck that could just spam a bunch of stats, well, when you have Yogg for 0 mana, very reliably early, like this was a board I was able to build just earlier today, turn 4, multiple giants, 0 mana taunt, and I even had 3 mana Yogg ready to go in hand if my opponent, who's by the way, was playing, you know, the same type of deal, would be able to beat that. Like, these are just super unhealthy boards, but even then, this was kind of counterable by like a board clear somewhat, but against, you know, mainly aggression was the way to counter this, but Yogg shores up that weakness. And the other deck is Miracle Rogue, which again, same thing, spams Arcane Giants, but also is able to deal with any early game aggression by just spamming out Yogg as early in this deck, like turn 2 and 3 as possible. This deck has so much 0 mana cards, 0 mana draw, that it can literally play Arcane Giants or Yogg really early. Or in the case of Raffle, as he was documenting his journey, he's a Giant Edwin. He did a 16-16, the next game he did a 20-20, and the next game, turn 2, 30-30 Edwin Van Cleef. So you can see there's a bit of a problem in terms of mana cheat in general in the game, but those are more of crazy high rolls. Still shouldn't be a thing. Cards should cost, you know, mana, but we've gotten away from that for whatever reason. But the common denominator behind this all of these decks is Yogg Saron. This card comes down way too soon for classes that can abuse it, like a Rogue, like a Druid. Those classes typically are supposed to have the class weakness of not having AoE, not having board clears. They might have single target removal, but board clears have always been pretty rare. And now you just gave them one that in Rogue, in Standard, can replay with Breakdance, Shadow Step, and in Wild, Druid can replay with Floop, that you just have this repeatable board clear for dirt cheap that allows them to do, you know, the greedy stuff their class has been designed around based on the fact that they lack like healing or board clears, and that's been shored up. And that is what's creating such a problem. That's just outside of the whole like Tony Jailer thing, which I said, these are all mistakes. Like, I just think these cards are fundamentally flawed. We've already seen Tony get banned from Wild because it's such a problem. Just these type of cards are just not good design. Like I mentioned before, they either don't see play and they're not very relevant, or they see play and they gotta get whatever deck they're seeing play nerfed because they create such horrible feelings of non-Hearthstone, non-interactivity. It's like, why do we make these cards? If we're gonna make them atrociously bad that they can't see play, but instead they're almost giving them cards to like try and make it happen with like the Yogg Sarons, the Anubracons, the Lashers of the world. And yeah, Hearthstone is a massive problem. First is Yogg Saron. I just think this card will get nerfed. Whether it goes to 20 mana, 25, this card comes down too soon, but only in the classes that abuse it. So it's gonna get nerfed because of like Rogue and Druid, whereas the other classes that play it a lot more reasonably, like a Mage or a Priest, will like never be able to play them. And then it's just, you know, kind of frustrating. Feel like I'm using Google Translate here because I believe his comments in Spanish said Yogg Saron gets nerfed before the next expansion ends. Safe tweet. I think it's a very safe card that's gonna get hit. I think it comes more to just the mass mana cheat in Hearthstone out of control, and I really do think the design of cards is getting more and more toxic. I mean, look at a card like Due Process. Why is that being made in today's game? It is so unfun for one player typically that they never made cards like that back in the day. Or you could even say like the cards that like discard cards out of your hand. We saw with Jade Telegram that got nerfed in Twist, which is still good in Twist, by the way. We'll talk about maybe Twist XL tomorrow, by the way. Mode is really sweet. It's just hard to say. What is the biggest problem? Is it it the Yogg? Is it the mass mana cheat? Is it all of it? Is it the card design? It's all kind of coming to the forefront with everything going on, and it's making it really hard for me to want to play ladder these days. It's really challenging. And when you look at the most played cards in the game, all around 40% of Ignis, Yogg, and Astalor that have been busted for quite some time. Not Yogg, it just came out, but the other two. And we know Renathal got nerfed for being too popular, and it was at like 33% when it got nerfed. What's the deal with this? Something's got to give, and I really hope it does soon, because yeah, ladder, not a lot of fun. Hearthstone, not a lot of fun outside of Twist. Twist is really sweet, but something's got to change, and I hope it's not another month for the next balance patch, because yeah, it is rather rough right now. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you think this is a major problem? Do you think Yogg should change? Mass mana cheat, card design, none of it, all of it? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.